what's the difference between being on the record and off the record when talking to a reporter? This is one of the most common questions that really every reporter gets all the time, and it's really important for you as a source to understand the ground rules of what it means to do responsible journalism in the world. Okay, I'm an investigative journalist. My name is Scott Carney. I've written 6 books. I've worked in war zones. I've uncovered organized crime rings. I deal with a lot of sensitive sources all the time. And when doing this sort of research, sometimes information is really, really sensitive and could get sources in trouble, even killed, if their names were attached to a story. So it's really, really important for me to protect my sources at the same time with relaying factual information to my readers. Okay, so let's say you've got this burning story in your pocket and you want to talk to a reporter. If you call them up and you just start talking, everything that you say to them is considered on the record, which means they can use your information in their story as factual grounding for the stories. Being on the record means you said it, it is on the record. Okay. Off the record is the opposite. It's basically saying this didn't happen. What I have told you, you cannot use anywhere. The problem with being off the record is that in general, a reporter can't use that information. So if you had something important to relay, how is it going to get out in the world? They cannot print something that has no factual basis. By going off the record, there is no factual basis that they can then cite in their reporting. Now, one thing that is incredibly important to understand is that there are no laws that govern being on the record or being off the record. You have to make an agreement with a reporter, and this is why the reporter's reputation is very, very important. A reporter who frequently burns his sources or her sources and prints information without permission, that reporter is going to have a very short career because we as reporters need to have sources trust us. That said, if you were going to tell a reporter that you just murdered somebody and said, but this is off the record, there's no ethical obligation for the reporter to keep that secret. We have to navigate through the ethical landscape that we live in and adhere to the laws that do exist. Now, when talking to a reporter, remember that you are going to reach an agreement with them. And it's a really, really good practice to say, before you start saying any information, hey, what's the difference between on the record and off the record? And can I say some statements that are on the record and off? Now, in general, if you're going to say something really sensitive in an interview, start off by saying, hey, this is off the record, and then wait for the reporter to respond. Yeah, I totally get it. I understand. If there's not a verbal agreement there, you're considered on the record. You can't just say it afterwards or after a story is printed and say, hey, that was all off the record. You need to be aware in your interview what you're saying, and there needs to be a clear understanding between the two parties. Now, there's 2 other types of attribution that also exist in journalism. This is called not for attribution or on background. And now, essentially what this is saying, look, I have some information and I don't want it to be off the record because it is important to get out there, but I don't want it to come back to me, the source. And this is a super tricky situation because as a reporter, I generally do not want to get on background information because I need to be able to verify it with multiple parties. I need to be able to come back to a source to say that this did in fact happen. And the thing about being on background is that the source is telling the journalist this information because they want the information to be in the world. And yet the reporter needs to be able to cite some sort of proof, some sort of docket of information, some sort of written record that says, yes, this thing, well, it actually happened. If you're purely on background and you are the only source, well, the journalist just can't do that. So if you're going to go on background, it really behooves you, the source, to provide some other corroborating material that makes the reporter able to trust what you're about to tell them. All right, I hope this clears up the difference between on the record, off the record, not for attribution, and on background. If you have any more questions, please feel free to get in touch with me. Leave a comment down in the description below.